first came up with the entire concept of the Blood Red Sky experiment, the thing that I feared the most is that there was one lie that I was going to have to tell Joe. And I can honestly say I have never told a lie to Joe in my entire life. There was never been a reason to. You know, he's always been, like I said, like a little brother to me. His biggest fear is that I was going to either ask him, you know, or trick him into taking LSD or some kind of hallucinogen. That was his fear. And as he had already told me, he was worried. He was worried that I may want, you know, this film to go a specific way so bad, and I may want to capture him on film freaking out so bad that I would cross that line. Even though I'd already promised him, I will not sneak anything into your food or drink, or I would never do anything like that. I'm not going to force you to take anything. I had told him from the very beginning, whatever you ingest, it's going to be at your own hand. It's not going to be, you know, something that I force. So as Justin was doing his, you know, part of the experiment, Joey's just pacing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Because he doesn't know when, but he knows very soon it's going to be time for him to do his portion of the experiment. And after just talking to Mary Beth, who is angry at me, and Kieran, who's just freaked out, because remember, Kieran doesn't know what I'm really going to do or not going to do. What he knows is that this entire thing is a psychological experiment. So just because I say, Joe, I'm going to have you, you know, take some kind of chemicals I'm going to introduce into your system, that doesn't mean that I'm going to. You know, as far as Kieran knows, at the last second, I could just not have him take anything. He doesn't know. So the lie that I was going to tell Joe was going to come after the fact. I was going to pull him into a room during Justin's portion of his experiment, towards the very end of it. And I was going to say, Joe, this is what it is. Take these. And then after he took those, I was going to wait about 30 minutes and say, I'm sorry. You were right. I want to see what happens when you're on a hallucinogen in the world's most haunted location. Even though that's not what I gave him or was going to give him. Remember, I was going to give him a medication that would actually calm him and would make him euphoric. Because he's already jacked up. Kieran's right. He's already so freaked out. I mean, the last thing on planet Earth I was going to give this kid is some kind of upper, you know, or some kind of methamphetamine or coke or something like that. Just something that would send him over the edge. You know, that's not going to happen. And there are real things that we got to look out for, like the stairway going up to King Edward Longshank's room. It's this winding stone stairway, and there's no handrail on it. You know, and it's completely dark, and he has no flashlight. You know, one wrong step, you're falling four flights. You know, so there are things we talked about, you know, when you get to the stairs, you got to stay all the way to the left. You got to keep your hand on the wall. That'll always tell you where you're at. You know, there's all kinds of things that we went over during the daylight to make sure that Joe would be safe. But you got to remember, all of that goes out the window when you're freaked out. That was always my biggest concern. That was my biggest concern. What if Joe gets halfway up those stairs and just panics and just takes off running in the dark? Or what if he gets halfway up those stairs and he's met by the ghost of John Sage? That was my concern. Once Joe got into King Edward Longsheng's room, I felt like, all right, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. So right at the end of Justin's experiment, I turn to Joe and I say, I need you to come with me. I could tell he didn't want to. He just kind of paused and stared at me with this just, that 1,000-mile away look in his eye. I said, Joe, it's okay. Come with me. He's like, okay. So we left and we took this long walk through this hallway into this side room that was right next to where Justin was doing, his portion of the experiment. We get in the room. I turn around. I go, Joey, I go, as I promised you, I'm not going to ask you to take a psychedelic. I go, this is a Norco and a Soma. And this will actually calm you down. It will actually make you euphoric. It will actually help you with your fear. Joey gave me this massive hug, just this elation. He just goes, oh my God. He's like, dude, thank you so much. He gave me this big, long hug, like he just embraced me. And he goes, okay. And he's just talking to me going, man, I was just so worried that, you were going to, ask me to, take a psychedelic and a hallucinogen. I'm not down with that. And as he's talking to me, he's undoing the paper and the wrapping that Mary Beth had put on the pills. And he never even looked at the pills. He just, as he was talking, he was undoing them and he just threw them in his mouth and swallowed them. And I said, well, you're good, man. I'm like, so let's just go sit back in the room. Let's finish watching Justin. Let's see what happens. And then you'll be on deck. So we go back into the main HQ and we're watching Justin. And he's freaking out. I mean, Justin is in a weird place. He's just on edge. There are bats throughout the entire castle. Bats, little tiny bats. And they're everywhere. The thing about bats are, they will just swoop so close to your face. But their sonar doesn't allow them to hit you. I mean, that's their thing, right? Bats have sonar. So, yeah, they don't hit your face. But it's really uncomfortable when you're sitting there and you hear, it's a really trippy feeling. And Justin is just freaking out, man. And he's cursing me the whole time. He's just going, Kalec, you motherfucker. So he's getting angry. Which I didn't see anger. I didn't foresee anger being something that would come out of him. But as he's getting angry, and as Joey's, behind me and everything is going through his mind, really weird things are starting to happen throughout the castle. Right as Justin is up there, the best way I can describe this is, if you those, like if you took railroad tracks and how they used to transport in tunnels, they would put, these wheelbarrows full of rock on these railroad tracks and they would move them. And the sound of like this full wheelbarrow moving on this railroad track, just this this sound just comes emanating out of the sky. I mean, right above us, massive. And you see it in the movie, you see me stop and like look up in the air like, what is that? I was thinking, man, is the roof falling? Like, what is going on? And Joey's experiencing this too. And he's looking around the room and I'm like, did we all hear that? Everyone's like, oh yeah. I'm like, what in the fuck is going on? And Graham, who had been in the room with us the whole time, I noticed that he had taken off. I didn't know where he went or what he was doing, but I noticed that he was gone. And a lot of times Graham would, just do checks around the property and all that stuff. So we did have CCTV cameras set up in locations that we were not going to be at because we wanted to monitor to see if anybody, was making any external sound. And we look down and we see that Graham leaves the castle. He just goes outside. And I thought, well, okay, maybe he's just, checking his rounds or doing part of what Graham does. So I looked back to Kieran and I was like, what was that massive sound? He's like, I don't know. I looked at MB, I'm like, I'm not crazy. Like, you heard this? She's like, oh, yeah, I heard it. And I looked back to Joe, and suddenly Joe has this very scared look on his face. He's just sitting there again, almost that like distrusting look again. And he's not moving his body or his head. He's just staring at me. So I just started engaging with him and talking to him. I'm like, Joey, did you hear that? And he doesn't move his head, and he's just like, yeah. And I could tell something's going on with him, and I'm thinking maybe these pills are starting to hit him. And I said, well, get ready, Joey, because, you're going to start your portion of the experiment soon. If the castle's already reacting, I want to get you up there, man. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't like this. And I'm like, I know you're freaked out, but just chill. I'm like, it'll all be good. It'll all be good. Right as that happens, as we mentioned before, doors open up throughout the entire castle all the time. The immediate door to the right of us in the control room opens all the way up. And I go, oh man. This was a different kind of open versus the other ones. This one was very long. It took a lot of pressure to basically scrape this door along the floor. Kieran and I can tell right away that's different, man. That it was just different. It felt like something was welcoming us, like saying, "Come on." So I look at Kieran. I'm like, "You want to do this? Do you want to just go investigate this place while Justin is, doing his experiment?" Now Justin, again, he's 4 floors up in Longshank's room. He left the main floor, and that's where he went, to where Joey's going to go. So he's 4 stories up in Longshank's room getting dive bombed by bats. So Kieran and I decide that we're going to go through the door that just opened. We're going to go to the chapel. And we're going to go to the main hall, which is where they would eat. And Mary Beth is going to remain with Joey to watch the monitors. So Kieran and I go walking through the door, and we're hearing stuff. There's, knocks, there's, what could be breaths, just little weird sounds that are almost leading us. So we get all the way back to the main hall, and it's heavy. You can just feel the energy. You can just feel it. And Kieran and I are just talking about what was that sound above us. It sounded like something was rolling on a track. And he's like, no, it definitely came from above us. And it was a huge sound. It just sounded like it had weight to it. Sorry, guys, my stomach's grumbling right now. I don't know why I need to eat breakfast. So we go walking back, we spend some time there and we realize that there are sounds, there are things that are going on. And we don't know why that door opened, but we explored it. We didn't really find anything specific other than some odd and bizarre sounds. We decided that, I'm not going to provoke or do any calling out when Justin is doing his portion of the experiment. But as Justin was getting angry, and as Joey's emotions were getting weirder, strange things were happening in that castle. So we get all the way back to the main door that opened, Kieran and I'm met by Mary Beth, who was just coming to get us. And she has a look on her face of fear, and I'm like, hey, what's wrong? And she's like, you gotta find Joey, you gotta find Joey. And I'm like, why? What happened? And she goes, he was sitting there, and he just looked at me, and he goes, what the fuck do you know? And she's like, what? And Joey said to Mary Beth, what do you know that I don't know? And she goes, Joey, nothing. And he goes, those pills Chad gave me. She goes, yeah. And he goes, they had paper on them. They were wrapped. She goes, okay. And he was like, pills that you get from like a pharmacist aren't wrapped. He's like, those are street pills. Like pills you get off the street are wrapped. And she goes, well, Joe, I don't know anything about that. And she's bullshitting because she's freaked out. And he was like, you got to tell me right now. Did I take LSD? And she's like, Joe, not that I know of. He's like, God damn it, tell me, did I take it? And she goes, Joe, not that I know of. You need to talk to Chad. And Joe starts freaking out. And he starts going, I knew it. I fucking knew it. He's like, I'm feeling weird. This is not right. Something's not right. And he goes just running out of the room. I'm like, oh, shit. Okay. Remember, guys, I was planning on bullshitting Joe and lying to him and telling him that he took a hallucinogen when he did not, because I wanted to see the placebo effect, the power of the mind. Even though he was on a sedative and something that would make him feel euphoria, would he start having hallucinations if he believed that a hallucinogen was in his system? But I never got the chance to even tell him this lie. Because given enough time, his mind worked on him, and the paper wrapping around the pills had convinced him that I tricked him. So I know at this point it's very serious, because Joey already told me, listen, if you do that to me, not only am I done with this project, but like we're done. Our friendship is done. Our friendship of 20 years will cease to exist. And before I could even tell him the lie, which I'm, part of me is so glad that I didn't have to, that I did not have to tell him that lie, because it's the one aspect of this entire project that I just did not know if I could bring myself to do. I had committed to doing it. I had committed to the fact that I was going to do it for the sake of the science of all of it. But I didn't know if I could do it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I was committed. But like anything else, you don't know until you know. It's kind of like, I'm afraid of heights. When I was 18, I had convinced myself that I was going to bungee jump. And I was committed to doing it. But I didn't know if I could do it until I got all the way to the top and looked down. Now, thankfully, then I did. And everything worked out. This was kind of the same. I was committed to lying to Joe and telling him a lie. The only time, it would have been the only time in my life that I would have lied to him. But thankfully I didn't have to. But regardless, the same effect as though I did was already taking place, was already, happening. And I knew Joey was not fucking around. So I don't know where he's at in the castle, but I know he is alone somewhere on drugs running through the castle, believing that he has LSD in his system. This was an extremely scary moment for me, because I'm like, if anybody's going to get hurt, or Joey's going to get hurt, it's going to be right now. And I start thinking to myself, Chad, what did you do? You know, why aren't the EMTs here? You dumbass, you know, like you just push too hard, man. I'm thinking that's in my head the whole time. If he gets hurt and there's no medical attention, you know, that was your call. And so I just start yelling for him. I was like, Joe, where you at? And I can't hear anything, and I'm yelling out as loud as I can, Joey, it's Chad. There's no LSD in your system. Stop, stop. But I'm just like, you know, trying to get him to come to me wherever he's at. And on the film, it makes it look like I just found him. I went back to our quarters and he was there at the sink. But I actually looked for him for a good 30 minutes. He was moving from room to room and place to place and trying to find a place where he could avoid me. So Kieran and Mary Beth are also looking for Joey. And we all split up on the main floor, all the while leaving Justin unwatched in King Edward Longshank's room. So absolute chaos is going on right now in this castle. Just chaos. So after looking place to place, I start thinking, God, where would he be? Where would he be? What would he be doing? So I just so happened to check the main quarters that were in my room, not his. And maybe he was thinking that I would not retreat to my room, but that's where he went. So I open up the bottom stairs. I run up the stairs, and he's at the sink. And he's leaning forward at the sink. And I could hear him dry heaving. Just, and I was like, oh, fuck. What is going on? Just, like, God damn. Like, God damn. You come around the corner, and I'm like, Joe. He's at the sink. He's not talking to me. And I'm like, Joey. He's not talking to me. And I walk up to him slowly, and I go to put my hand on his back, and he sees me out of the corner of his eye. And he shoves my hand away, and he's just pacing. He says, stay away from me. I'm like, Joe, what are you doing? He's like, something's not right. I go, what do you mean? He goes, something's not right. I'm like, Joe, what do you think? And he goes, you lied to me. I go, no, I didn't lie to you. He's like, you lied to me. You did. You lied to me. I go, Joey, I didn't lie to you. And he goes, and why do I feel the way I feel? I go, Joey, it's because you have 2 different strong drugs in your system. And he goes, no, this feels different. I'm going to start hallucinating. I go, oh, fuck, Joey. I go, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I go, I'll be honest. I was going to lie to you and tell you that I did that. Just to see how strong your mind is when you believe. And he goes, well, now you fucking know. Man, that hurt. It just hurt. It hurt looking at Joe. It hurt because I'm just questioning, am I just an absolute fucking monster? Am I what he feared? Am I so driven to make this film that I would, torture somebody that I love as my little brother just emotionally and mentally torture him to the degree that we're here, that he's dry heaving, that he's scared to death, that he's running away from me, that he's hiding, that he won't let me touch him. Yeah, I was just thinking in my head, am I that monster? Because this is what that scenario looks like. And maybe I never thought of that. You know, when I was going to trick Joey, I never thought about how it would visually play out. And here it is. My little brother looking at me like I'm the devil. He feels scared. He feels isolated. He feels like he's about ready to go through, you know, a bunch of hallucinations. It's a horrible feeling. And at that moment, I felt like I've lost him. I have lost my friend. Because he doesn't believe me, so he's going to have time to process that and see that he didn't take a hallucinogen. And now that he's at this point, I mean, you think he gives a fuck about the movie? I'm thinking he doesn't care. There's no way he's going up to Longshank's room. So I'm thinking, not only did I blow this friendship forever and lose my best friend, but all the time, effort, energy, money, you know, all the resources that went into making this film, because so much of it was built on the back of Joe, I'm thinking, well, I fucked up. And I have nobody to blame but myself. I fucked up. I pushed too hard. I didn't consider what could really happen. So it was just pacing back and forth and back and forth. And every time I try to get close to him and touch him, because there's a lot in a touch, you understand? It's like, imagine right now, you, the listener, imagine if you're sitting right in front of me and I say to you, look, man, I really care about you. Now imagine if I literally reach over and just put my hand on your leg and look you dead in the eyes and say, look, man, I really care about you. It's going to be more powerful with the touch. So I'm trying to put hands on Joey. I'm trying to like let him feel, I'm your brother, dude. Like, you told me you would not take this. I promised you that I would not make you take it. And I promised you I would not poison you with it. I would not, you know, do something to make you secretly ingest it. And he just wouldn't. He wouldn't allow me to touch him. I kept trying, and he just kept moving. It was like pinballing across the room. And that was like, you know, the peak of me being freaked out. Because I've been through so much with Joey. I've been through so much. And suddenly he doesn't want me to talk to him. He doesn't want to see me. He doesn't want me to touch him. He's telling me I just want this fucking thing over. I just want to get the fuck out of here. I'm like, Joey, I didn't do that to you. And he's like, I just want the fuck out of here. Period. You know? He goes, if I could have found Kieran's car, I'd already be gone. Because remember, Kieran drove us. And Joey was looking for the keys. He was looking, when he was going from room to room initially, when we couldn't find him, He was looking for the keys to Kieran's car because he was going to leave us flat ass stranded. He was going to leave us stranded at Chillingham. He didn't care. He said it after. He was going to leave us stranded. You know, that was one of the darker moments of my filmmaking life. That's for sure. Because, like I said, the realization that the castle was not the antagonist of the story, and that I was, and that wasn't planned. I just knew there was no way that I was going to come off, yeah, looking good in this, you know, documentary of this incredible experiment that apparently is going wrong right before my eyes. So finally, he lets me put my hand on his chest, and I say to him, "Joey, look me in the eye." And he looks at me. And I said, "I didn't do that to you. You don't have a hallucinogen in your system. I would never do that to you. Never." And he pauses and he's staring me straight in the eye. And I said, "Brother, I love you. I love you." You know, I learned a long time ago through my family and my upbringing that the blood running through your veins has nothing to do with who you call family. Because my family, the people that I consider my family, very few of them have my bloodline. It's all friends. It's all people that, you know, I first met as friends and became so close that it's not that they're like family to me, they are family to me. And Joey is family to me. And I could see in that moment that I got through to him. I could see in his eyes that he finally allowed himself to believe me. You know, my hand is on his chest. I'm looking him dead in the eye and I'm going, "Joey, I didn't do that to you. I wouldn't do that. I'm admitting to you that I was going to lie to you about what you took, but I would never, ever, ever put you in a situation where you would take something that you told me you did not want to take." He said, "Okay." I said, "So do you want to just call this whole thing off? Are you done?" And he takes this very long pause and he goes, "Let's fucking do this." I go, "Yeah?" And he goes, "Let's just fucking do this. Let's get it over with, man." I go, "Yeah, right now?" And he goes, "Right now." He goes, "Let's do this right now or I'm not doing it, dude. Right now." I'm like, "Okay." So I grab my walkie-talkie and MB has a walkie and Kieran has a walkie, and I just say, "Hey, listen, guys, Joey's ready to go right now. Right now. So let's all meet back in HQ." So we all meet back in HQ, and Joey's at the back of HQ pacing again. And Kieran sits down, and he was like, "Things okay?" Kind of whispers to me. I leaned back to him and said, "I think so. I don't know, but Joey wants to go right now." Kieran's like, "Okay." Now also keep in mind that Kieran still doesn't know the full story of what's going on because all he heard was Mary Beth say, "Chad, Joey freaked out. He thinks that you gave him LSD." And from that point, I took off to go find him. So Kieran doesn't even know that I've given Joey any kind of drugs yet. He just knows that Joey thinks I did. Which dawns on me, I gotta tell Kieran about this pretty soon. Because he doesn't know for sure what's going on. Well, thankfully, right at that time, Justin's time period was coming up, where he was going to be done in Longsheng's room. So I say to Joey, Justin's going to be down in just a few minutes, and the second he comes through that door, you go. It's a go for you. So Justin's at his breaking point too. I mean, he's just over this shit. He's just like, I need to get out of here, man. And he's like watching the clock, literally counting down seconds to where he could leave. So the second he could leave, he goes firing down those 4 flights of stairs, shoots through the dungeon. It's a shortcut, hits the courtyard, fires through this side hallway, and comes back into HQ. I go, Joey, you're on. Go. Couldn't believe it. Joey grabs his camera, turns it on, and he's out the door fast as can be. So we had one CCTV camera set up, and I'm watching Joey go up the stairs, and I'm just praying that he does not fall down those stairs and nothing happens on those stairs to freak him out. Because like I said, that was the one spot where I felt like a boy can get into some trouble right there. So I'm just trained, just dialed in on those steps, watching him go up. First flight, okay, he's okay. Second flight, he's okay. Please, nothing happen. Third flight, okay, he's got one more flight to go. And that last flight just seemed like it took him forever. And I just kept thinking, Joey, get off those fucking stairs, man. Get into Longsheng's room. So he does, but very slowly. I mean, you can tell he is in a full-blown battle with his own fear. I mean, it was brave, man. It's one of the bravest things I'd ever seen. He was terrified and emotionally broken. So once I see that Joey's up there and he's safe and sound, there's no time like now. I turn and I go, Kieran, we got to talk. And he goes, okay. And I go, Joey just ingested a narcotic as well as a benzo, Soma, whatever category it's at. I think it's a benzo, whatever category it's in. Somas are just deadly drugs. They should be off the market, to be honest. And Kieran looks at me very pissed off, like, what? Like, I thought we were playing mind games here. What are you talking about? You're drugging people up? And I was like, well, no, I gave it, like, I didn't put it in his mouth. Like, I did not force him to ingest it. I gave it to him, and by his own will, he took it. And he's like, I'm not cool with this. You know, I know. I didn't think you would be. That's why I didn't tell you. And he goes, well, I'm not cool with that either. And I go, well, I know, Kieran. I go, but when this started, I asked you to be an observer. Can you be an observer to what is going on? Because I want to get some real answers that nobody's ever tried for. I go, and if I would have told you up front that this is what we're going to do, then just to kind of protect yourself as far as your status goes as And doctor and a parapsychologist, you're not going to want to have this, on your record. I said, well, look, man, I'm really sorry. I didn't lie to you. I just didn't tell you everything that was going on, and I couldn't. But I needed your mind here. I needed you here to just witness and observe. And you said you could do that. So, you're not responsible for this. Your hand is not at play. I just need you to witness this and to observe the results of this experiment. And he was like, well, look, as long as you understand, this is on you. And I'm like, yeah, it's on me. I take full responsibility. And he was like, full responsibility, because what Joey's doing right now, he's like, I would never do, and I don't support it. I'm like, okay. My question is, can you be an observer? Can you be a conscientious, objective observer to what is going on right now? I'm just asking you to be a doctor. Can you do that? And he goes, well, if you put it in those terms, that this is just purely science, I'm observing, then yes, I can do that. I go, okay. I go, when this whole thing is done, you could lecture me and you could, backhand me and beat me up and tell me all the ways that I was, irresponsible. But for right now, this is happening. Joey is up there. There are drugs coursing through his veins. His mind is working in a unique and different way. And he is in the most haunted building of this structure, completely alone and terrified. So I need you to observe. Because this whole trip has been about this moment right now. He said, okay. He said, I just want you to know, I think this is very dangerous. And I said, I understand, man, but everybody talks about going down this road, and no one goes down it. And you know that, from, God, for so long now, so many people have talked about that the answers might be with altering the mind. The answer is the spirit communication, the ability to speak to, whether it be, somebody in an alternate dimension, which may be what ghosts are, or the deceased. That altering the mind using a different part of the brain may, in fact, provide the bridge to make that happen, where we can do it in a way that isn't so difficult, so we can stop trying to decipher EVPs and have a real conversation with whoever we're talking with. It's not like Kieran didn't understand. He just did not agree with the method. And maybe I would have done it differently, had I thought about it more and had more time. But no one had done this. There's no blueprint. Like, we're making history as we do this. I don't have anything to look off of, but somebody has to make the step. And I never looked at the Blood Red Sky experiment as finality. I looked at it as a starting point, and hopefully people would refine what we did there. Hopefully there would be some kind of result that we could look at and say, wow, there is something viable here. Others should take this work, peer review it, find out where we made mistakes, find out where we succeeded, refine it, and do it better. But there has to be a starting point. There has to be a starting point. And he agreed. He just wanted to be very clear that if anything happened, it was on me. I agreed. We turned our focus onto Joey. We buckled down and said, let's see how the rest of this night goes. And on the next episode, you will find out exactly what went down in King Edward Longshank's room during Joey's portion of the experiment.